Hello and welcome to Money Markets and More with me, Dominic Frisby. And today we ask if it is game over for Bitcoin Treasury companies. As the FCA finally blinks, what are the global implications of Britain's Bitcoin about face? Now, the UK Financial Conduct Authority, the FCA, has announced that it's loosening its anti-Bitcoin stance. From October the 8th, retail investors in the UK will now be able to buy Bitcoin ETNs. Finally, now there is some confusion about the difference between an ETF and an ETN, and we'll come to that in just a moment. But the ban came in with Bitcoin at $5,000. Today it's $115,000. So that is $110,000 a coin that UK investors have been protected from. Great job, guys. Where will it be on October the 8th? Who knows? Now, does this announcement mark the top of the market for Bitcoin? There would be a poetic irony if it did, but it won't. Bitcoin is so much bigger than the FCA. At present, it doesn't even look like a case of buy the rumour, sell the news, because Bitcoin's actually sold off a little bit since the announcement, only by a few percent. But this change in tack is going to have a huge impact. It's about a lot more than British retail investors. It is global. It's going to have an impact on the Bitcoin Treasury companies around the world, and it's going to have an impact on the Bitcoin price itself. And here I'm going to explain why. But we're going to start with the announcement itself from David Geel, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Executive Director of Payments and Digital Finance at the FCA. Since we restricted retail access to crypto ETNs, the market has evolved and products have become more mainstream and better understood. In the light of this, we're providing customers with more choice while ensuring there are protections in place. This should mean people get the information they need to assess whether the level of risk is right for them. Blah, blah, waffle, waffle. Absolutely no ownership of the FCA's calamitous regulation whatsoever. Fortunes have been lost to British investors because of the FCA. How is it these bodies are so totally unaccountable? Perhaps everyone who is involved in that decision should be made to compensate British investors for their loss of earnings. We're providing consumers with more choice. Please. There is gaslighting for you right there. So, moving on. By the way, don't forget my brilliant book about Bitcoin. If you want to learn more about the space, I shall put a link to that in the description or in the comments. There's also a link to my new book, The Secret History of Gold, which comes out later this month. Amazon is currently offering a discount, so order yours now. I think they're offering 20% off. So obviously UK investors are now going to be able to buy Bitcoin ETFs through their brokers. And by the way, an ETF in the US means what an ETN means in the UK. You can't call it a fund in the UK if it's a single asset. You can call it a fund in the US. So it's just a semantic thing, if I've understood it properly. So UK investors are going to be able to buy Bitcoin ETFs through their brokers, which means we can hold them in our SIPs and our ISAs. And I gather there's roughly £3 trillion in UK pensions, 750 billion in ISAs, 500 billion in SIPs, and quite a lot more in other brokerage accounts. So that is a lot of capital, which can now come into Bitcoin, which previously could not. But there is more to it than that. The institutional floodgates are about to open. And at this point, I'm going to quote former HSB fund manager and ByteTree CEO Charlie Morris, who knows this world as well as anyone. And he has this to say: the lifting will have a far greater impact on the market than many believe. It's not just retail, but institutions too. Many funds around the world are connected to London, whether it be custodians, administrators, distribution, or trade execution. The ban meant that a single touch point with the UK would prevent allocation to Bitcoin. From October the 8th, this will no longer apply. Not only will UK retail investors boost demand for Bitcoin exchange-traded products, but a far bigger deal will be the opening up to institutions and funds around the world. It is a monumental moment for Bitcoin, which will become a global institutional asset over the next decade. Quite strong terms. And by the way, you should subscribe to Charlie's newsletters. They're excellent. There are free and paid options, and I will put a link to them in the description as well. So the FCA's announcement coincided with Trump's announcement that Americans will be able to buy these products in their 401k plans. So that is another huge source of capital, a step in the direction of normalisation. Now, you saw my piece a few weeks ago about the global shadow banning of Bitcoin in London. London and the FCA have a huge role to play in that. Here's an example. A banker I know in Zurich couldn't buy Bitcoin products for one of his high net worth clients because of the ban. And he was by no means alone. He was in Zurich. We've taken a step forward to the lifting of this shadow ban, but not the final step by any means. And as we noted, the funds buying Bitcoin are still the pirates rather than the big players. But it's still a move towards the legitimization and normalization of Bitcoin. Bitcoin can get something to like 2% of portfolios worldwide, which it eventually will. Well, woof is all I can say. So what about the Treasury companies? What's next for them? Well, the air has well and truly come out of the UK Bitcoin Treasury companies. That was probably the fastest expansion and pop that I have ever seen in my life. And there are some gruesome stats. Here's a couple of them at random. The London Bitcoin Company, BTC.L, went from 15p to 50p to 5p. Coincilium went from 3p to 80p to 5p. And if you look at the premiums the Treasury companies command or have commanded, they tend to be higher in jurisdictions where regulators have clamped down on Bitcoin, i.e. the UK and Japan. And the two big examples are Metaplanet and Smarter Web Company. And the fizz has come out of these two as well. Both have fallen by more than 50% from their peaks, although they were very, very high peaks. Neither, however, have collapsed quite like the London smaller plays, the juniors, if you like. So is it game over? I'm not sure. I know you like clarity, but I'm just not sure. The trends in both are clear at the moment, and the trends are down, but trends change. The US Treasury companies don't command the same premiums, and of course you can buy the ETFs in the US, so it's easy to explain the bubbles, the insane premiums over NAV, as a creation of regulation in places like Japan and the UK, and that regulation is changing. I think it's fine that, for example, Strategy trades at a premium to its NAV of 2 because it has Michael Saylor as chairman. And the stock commands a high premium for the same reason an Elon Musk company might do. The man's a genius. But the other US companies, which don't have CEOs of quite the same or chairmen of quite the same profile or visionary status, they tend to trade at lower premiums. Again, that is normal. One example which I own, Semler Scientific, I've got a large and frustrating position in that one. It's like probably the best value because it's trading at an MNAV of roughly 1. It trades at roughly the value of its holdings. To be clear, I think companies in general should hold a chunk of their treasuries in Bitcoin. I do that with my own company. A slight premium to NAV is often justifiable if the expectation is that the company will acquire more coins using money raised at a higher price, in the same way where companies where growth is likely to command a premium. But the multiples we saw a month or two back, $40,000 worth of coin, hundreds of millions of dollars worth of market cap, I think those days are gone. As Bitcoin ETFs become widely available, there will not be the same need to buy Strategy or any of the other Treasury companies to get exposure to Bitcoin and circumvent the shadow ban. So why take the additional company risk unless there's an incredible growth profile? Could be wrong, of course. I often am. There might be something I'm missing, and if I am missing it, please say so in the comments. But for me, the path of least risk is to own Bitcoin itself, which I urge you all to do if you don't already, post October the 8th. Lock in the incredible gains you've made with Strategy, 1,500%. Some of my readers have enjoyed, and any of the other treasuries, and roll them into Bitcoin itself. So, in short, I'm reluctant to say game over for the Treasury companies, but maybe it's game over for the insane premiums. Thanks very much for watching. I'll be back with another video very soon. Please subscribe to the channel, buy my book, do everything that you're supposed to do, like, share, all that stuff. Until then, goodbye.